isn't bum rushing the United States border, they make themselves unwelcome to residents of Tijuana, Mexico, where they are currently squatting, probably for over a month now. The United States won't let them in as their bogus claims of asylum are slowly processed, and Mexico is growing weary of their occupation. Thankfully, one group of migrants has a solution that was inspired by Reverend Al Sharpton's shameless race hustling. A good old-fashioned shakedown, if you will. A group of Hondurans is demanding that President Donald Trump either let them into the United States or give them $50,000 each so they can return to their home country. Is there a third option? According to this report, that a group of around 100 migrants marched into the U.S. consulate in Tijuana this week. The Honduran migrants presented a letter with demands that President Trump let them into the United States, or, if that won't happen, that they each be paid $50,000 to return home. A group organizer, Alfonso Guerrero, said that they came up with this random figure collectively. According to one of the migrants, it may seem like a lot of money to us, but it's a small sum compared to everything that the United States has stolen from the Hondurans. Really? According to certified United States documents, the U.S. gives Honduras $127 million a year, so maybe we're even, and that's assuming the United States has stolen from Honduras, which it probably hasn't. And what exactly would these Hondurans do with $50,000 each anyway? If these migrants can return home to start businesses with the money that the United States is going to give them, they aren't being threatened and persecuted, meaning that they absolutely have no claim for asylum whatsoever. It looks like they accidentally blew their cover story on this one. This group has also demanded that the United States remove Honduran President Orlando Hernandez. They gave the U.S. a hard deadline of 72 hours to respond. And here's the funny thing about this, quote, they said they had not decided what to do if their demands are not met, unquote. I don't know. We will decide as a group, according to the group spokesman. It looks like they didn't think that one thought through, did they? What could they possibly do if and when the United States doesn't respond? Hang out in Tijuana, Mexico longer? Return home to Honduras without $50,000 and be considered a traitor? We all know that when you are not negotiating from a position of strength, you cannot make ridiculous demands like this. President Donald Trump is a master negotiator, and this is making him and everyone else laugh.
Republicans on the Hill working to put together the votes were told to fulfill President Trump's request for $5 billion in border wall funding. One possible vehicle could be a short-term spending bill that expires in January but includes funding for the wall and emergency disaster aid for the California wildfires. Keeping up the pressure, the president tweeting today, another very bad terror attack in France. We are going to strengthen our borders even more. Let's bring in Fox News contributor, former acting director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Thomas Homan, and senior researcher on immigration and border issues for Human Rights Watch, Clara Long. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Thomas, what do you make of the president connecting the French terror attack to our border issues? Some people found that inappropriate.
I don't think it's inappropriate. Look, known or suspected terrorists are arrested trying to enter this country every day. And some do come to the southwest border. As the ICE director, I detained some of them that were arrested by the Border Patrol. So there are people that want to do harm to this country, enter the country illegally, many by air, many by, maritime, but some across that southern border. So it isn't so far-fetched that the president would say something like that.
All right, Clara, we heard the president talk about some numbers, recent numbers that he'd asked for research as he is looking at the wall. And we heard Congressman Jim Jordan, a Republican, tweet some of those out today. He said, walls work. These facts don't lie. Israel, illegal immigration down 99%. San Diego down 92%. El Paso down 95%. Tucson down 90. Yuma down 95. Let's build the border security wall. Hashtag do what we said. Your reaction?
Look, it's not surprising that we have more people crossing the border outside of ports of entry when the United States is metering very severely the number of people who can cross at legal ports of entry. Customs and Border Protection says that has something to do with capacity, but there doesn't appear to be good evidence coming out on the part of CBP that it actually has to do with capacity. Instead, it seems to be about decreasing the number of people who can seek asylum in the United States, which I'll say doesn't conform with the United States law or with the international obligations that we're adhering to under the Refugee Convention.
Well, Thomas, what do you make of that? Because that is something we constantly hear, that capacity is so low that the numbers, of course, are going to bottleneck at the border, and then people are going to come here illegally because they don't have another way to get here legally.
Well, first, let's not attack the United States. We welcome more immigrants, refugees in this country than any other country in the world, first of all. Second of all, yeah, they do meter these people in. Let's understand what's going on in San Ysidro Port of Entry. Over 100,000 people are processed at that port of entry every day. So they can certainly shut down legal trade and legal people coming into the United States and concentrate on this, So we have a choice to make. There's legal trade, there's legal business, or people are entering this country every day with a visa or some sort of documentation. 100,000 people a day. If you look at the 100 or so they admit to asylum seekers takes about 19% of that workforce. 19% of the workforce for less than 1% of the population come to the port of entry. The men and women of CBP is actually doing a pretty good job considering the amount of work that comes to the largest port of entry in the world.
I want to play something from Hogan Gidley from over at the White House talking about Democrats and where they stand on this issue of a border wall, which we saw the very heated discussion in the Oval Office yesterday, and obviously people digging in their heels publicly and privately over this issue. Here's Hogan Gidley.
They used to be on the right side of this. They voted themselves. Chuck Schumer, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton all voted for a border wall. They used to be for securing our borders. They are not for that anymore.
Clara, is it simply become political and about opposition to this president?
Look, everything's political these days, but the fact is that the border wall, there's not good evidence that a border wall is actually going to increase border security. And let me tell you, as a human rights organization, we're in support of the United States controlling and managing its borders. The question is, how do you invest to do that? And instead of investing in the appropriate resources to say, screen individually, because that's what's needed, as former Director Homan has pointed out, screening people individually so we can tell, so the United States can tell if someone poses a threat or if they have a legitimate asylum claim. Instead of investing in that, the government is proposing to invest in, a wasteful initiative that wouldn't really solve the problems here.
Okay, Thomas, I want to get you to respond to something along those lines. A criticism from the ACLU talking about the work that's being done at the border. They say it is hurting innocent people. The headline of this article says President Trump is accelerating the militarization of the southwest border. It says Trump's dangerous promise of a 1,000-mile border wall is likely to cause migrant deaths and more human suffering, devastate the environment, waste taxpayer dollars, and damage border communities. Your response, sir.
Well, look, I started my 34 career as a Border Patrol agent, so I wore that uniform, worked at the line. What the president did was it was smart business what he did. Because let me tell you, when they sent the military down there to do all the infrastructure work and to do the sensor monitor and the radar monitor, that put more of the green uniforms on that border. And what's happened? That pushed the cartels out of business. Cartels are upset right now because they can't move their product because with the additional security on the border, they're losing money. Mm-hmm. And let me tell you something about the case that just happened. The president tried to make these Caravan go through port of entry saying, I'm not going to let you apply for asylum if you enter illegally. He was doing a good thing there, and of course he got overruled by a judge over in San Francisco. But let me tell you what that judge actually did. These caravans are going to be at a port of entry surrounded by federal agents to keep them safe. The women won't be raped, children won't be abused, they won't be robbed. And what this lawsuit actually did is saying, okay, it's okay if you enter illegally again, so let's go back into the hands of criminal organizations.
Yeah, one thing we can agree on, I think, is that these cartels are very, very dangerous for innocent people, the ones who are actually just seeking a better life. All right, Clara and Thomas, thank you both very much.